Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. With us today, we have Taishya Adams, who is a candidate for Boulder City Council, and we're excited to have a conversation with you. The idea of today is just to learn a little bit about you as a candidate and any information that you'd like to share to help inform our community members before they head to the polls in a couple weeks. So thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, my buttons aren't working. So I hope you can see and hear me okay. I'm not able to do anything on my screen. So alas, my name is Taishya Adams. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a candidate for Boulder City Council. I've been living in the city of Boulder for 11 years, and it's been a privilege and an honor to call this place home. But with lots of privilege and honor comes responsibilities and obligations. And as somebody who is at the intersection of a couple of different marginalized identities, I think it's really important that we have people with a variety of different lived experiences to bring a just and joyous community, as I like to say. Justice is in all of the ways, right? As well as joy. And again, I think when I'm asked about what I most care about, and what are my focus areas, I always say, I would say, one, climate and cultural resilience, and two, habitat for all. And so when I talk about a climate and culturally resilient city, I'm talking about making sure that we have biodiversity restoration. I'm talking about water quality, water infrastructure. I'm talking about energy. And when I'm talking about the cultural resilience, I'm talking about being able to move beyond monolithic representation, participation, and activation to something that is really truly represented and driven by all of the parts of our community. And then when I talk about habitat for all, I'm talking about both habitat for people, and that looks like houses and businesses and shops and all of these things, but it's also habitat for our critters and water and all of our entire ecosystem. And as I speak to this particular community, those who are connected with the Center for People with Disabilities, or whether cognitive or physical, I'm thinking about habitat as well from that perspective as well. And so, I've been disappointed, actually devastated to see the inequities, the blind spots within the accessibility community. I have been and am a equity specialist, and so really sitting at the intersections and unpacking the diversity within the diversity is something that a skill set that I bring, as well as just navigating systems that were not designed for me to succeed and actually were designed for me to fail. And again, a willingness to build bridges with unlikely partners, as well as those again who have been in the margin, as well as those who are overrepresented. So definitely a champion for the people and champion for our planet.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that brief introduction and sharing that with us today. And to elaborate a little bit on Habitat for All, and you mentioned that you had noticed some gaps in current policies and how that's in practice in our community. And I know that that's a big, issue for our community as well, with lots of barriers. And the first question we have for you today is, how would you plan to ensure that public spaces, transportation, and city facilities are fully accessible and accommodating for people with disabilities?
One, unpacking what we mean by accessible. By, again, when I talk about the diversity within the diversity, making sure that that is codified and clear, and that there are examples of what it looks like and what it does not. I think the other piece is having experiential experiences for anybody who's making policies related to those topics. I was a commissioner for Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and this is where the accessibility issue came into focus for me. And, as we were in charge of our parks and wildlife areas, and, I was talking with a woman who's the park manager at Fisher's Peak, and we were talking about accessibility, and she's got this new park, and we're gonna, she's gonna do these cool things, and she was like telling me all about this amazing training that she went to in Boulder. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, this is happening in Boulder? And so she connected me with Topher, and Topher took me out, and again, having that experiential experience and then having that reinforced when I'm also serving on the Colorado Office of Tourism Destination Stewardship Council, and we just had a conference. And so Topher actually led our hike for all abilities. And so we went to Wonderland Lake and we're in wheelchairs, went around there. But then he also took us into the neighborhood and into the shopping center. And that was one of those, again, it's the experiential. I can tell you all day about, what needs to happen, but having that experiential experience is transformational. So again, it's not just changing a policy, but how do you make sure that that policy is implemented with fidelity? The more that we can get people to experience, to embody what these challenges and barriers look like, even if it's for an hour or 30 minutes, I have noticed it is not only fit. Oh, sorry, I have a new kitten. I was like, okay, I'm going to put these snacks up here. Surely she won't get to them. Boom, 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 boom. So anyway, sorry, I'll play that up later. But anywho, going back to having opportunities for exposure, having opportunities to clarify terms, expectations, and most importantly, it's transparency and accountability. Right now, I'm underwhelmed by our accessibility metrics of success, how we hold ourselves accountable, how often we communicate information and share it back in community, and then also how are people with disabilities represented on our boards and commissions, on panel, right? I don't want to have another advisory group. You already have all of these things. Why is that not already there? I have just recently been told that we have somebody with a physical disability, mobility, we don't have the ability for them to actually get to the other side of the dais. It's just, and then, as an African-American, going to a restaurant and then being told we have to enter through an alley or through the back. So again, it's one of those things where, how do we create opportunities to have people who are in those policy and funding opportunity, power and authority to have those experiential experiences? That I think is one of the most important pieces. The other is to ensure that people with disabilities are at decision-making tables, not giving 2 minutes of public comment, but actually having a vote, having power to make decisions, having agency. Those are the things I'm excited about in every area.
100% agree. It's important to have a seat at the table and be involved in the policy decisions that are affecting our community. And also, really having a clear definition of terms, as you mentioned, for accessibility is essential when starting these conversations, because everybody is coming at these issues with different knowledge sets. So it's important to have that basis of understanding. And then it's amazing that you've, Topher and have worked with him. He's an amazing advocate and person that I've known for a while. And those experiences are so amazing. And it's essential to have people with lived experience sharing what our lives are like, to help that understanding and empathy building, and acknowledging the value of lived experience as well, and that diversity of thought that's essential for having an equitable and equal society. So with that acknowledgement of the importance of lived experience and having, a seat at the table, what steps will you or do you think should be created to collaborate with disability advocacy groups and involve people with disabilities in decision-making processes? How can we help create some rails to encourage that participation and help it happen?
So we have some incredible opportunities on the next council. One is a continuum of the racial equity plan. I'm so sorry, she's still flumping around. The racial equity plan actually this is in 2016, I think updated in 2019, called for an analysis of the boards and commissions, and just from a representation perspective, like who is there. Again, I appreciate racial equity and understand its premise, but I also know that there are Black people who are disabled. So therefore, there should include I'm hopeful that analysis, which I'm told has yet to happen, would also include a lens around ability, so that we have that information as well. So we understand where the gaps are. So that's one piece. But the other piece is the update to the 10-year plan. And one of my other focuses when I talk about Justin Joyce is that good governance, participatory participatory governance. And so by that, I mean, we have an opportunity to accelerate our the Boulder communication community engagement framework. Currently, it starts at inform, then it goes to consult, excuse me, and then it goes to collaborate. Our framework, for some reason, left off the fifth dimension, which was empower. And the empower piece was really that shared responsibility, shared design, shared accountability. And that's really where I'd like to see as we plan for the next 10-year or for the next 10-year plan, really modeling what that empowerment looks like.
Thank you so much. And going back a little bit, you had spoke to the need of accountability. And a big concern that we have in our community, especially recently, is in regards to code enforcement, especially on our sidewalks and streets. And that has to do with things blocking central roadways and curb cuts and intersections and snow and ice removal. So what are your thoughts on current code enforcement? Are you committed to helping improve this kind of enforcement and enforcing accessibility laws and regulations?
100%. I mean, these laws are put in place so that there is a level playing field and we can all participate in this community. And, you know, I actually, in preparation for this run, was starting to look at different view different boards and commission meetings. And so I went to the transportation advisory meeting, and they were getting all excited about the expansion of the Lime e-scooter program for the entire city. And I'm sitting there, you know, with my little hand raised because I know that there are these little Lime scooters in the curb cuts and on the thing, and they're being left for multiple days. And so I said, you know, what's being done about this? And they said, oh, no, there's a van that comes. And I'm like, yeah, but that van is not coming immediately thereafter. And if somebody's coming immediately thereafter on their way to work, you have now impeded their ability to live. And that is unacceptable. Imagine if you were driving a car and you just stopped your car in the middle of the road and walked wherever you were going. That would never be allowed to stand. And so again, we have inequitable enforcement, right? And this is what I'm saying when I get asked questions about safety, whose safety are we talking about? Because there are people who have yet to feel safe in our community for a variety of different reasons, one of them being the lack of enforcement around some of these issues that we know are critical. But again, I'm somebody whose eyes on the sparrow because I know what it's like to pay into a system, to contribute to a system, to be a part of a community and have my issues ignored. And so again, I'm never going to speak for anybody. I'm always going to be participatory and finding ways to share power.
Thank you very much. And it's really amazing for you to kind of acknowledge the importance of these issues with a sense of urgency approaching to it, because we share our lived experiences to help articulate a need and provide understanding of how devastating this problem is and how it affects our lives. And something like this is life or death for our community members. And it definitely needs to be talked about with the same sense of urgency as it's felt in our community, because all too often a lot of these issues with enforcement that are looked at in ways where they don't affect everyone and you can kind of wait and find a solution later, they disproportionately affect our community members, and it's always the most vulnerable
community that cuts across every social strata. And now I mean I know I'm talking fair, but I'm just saying, like, so there's that. But I wanted to finish this piece where I talked to him and I said, well, have you considered, like, because the other thing is when we do complain, it goes to like the company. It's like, the company is not responsible for enforcement. The city is responsible for enforcement. And so again, I have no time for that. And so again, and I also think from a universal design perspective and position, right? We know, again, the evidence is clear that when we design for all abilities, we are improving the lives of all people regardless of ability. And again, that's a mindset that we need to help people see. Now, one of our advantages is that we have an incredibly aging population. 65 and up is aging at 7 times faster than any other group. And I call it Nancy Reagan syndrome, where it comes to their doorstep. So all of a sudden it's important. So we have some more people that are going to have this lived experience that will help to accelerate things in ways, but we shouldn't have to wait, and we won't.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate you expanding on that and your thoughtful answer. And on the same theme with the importance of safety and how kind of different communities are represented differently within plans. And this brings to mind emergency preparedness and response, and especially in regards to people with disabilities. And this is obviously something very close to all of us as living in Boulder community. We've been affected very recently. So could you please speak a little bit to how you would ensure that emergency preparedness and response plans are inclusive and cater to the needs of people with disabilities?
Again, I think that this is going to be a growth area for me, but I'm going to use the experience that I had at CPW around accessibility on the trails and transfer that and transition that to what I'd like to see for wildlife, for emergency repair response. And again, that whole program needs to be revamped around the board. So we have a rich opportunity as far as timing to make some structural changes in the ways that we're doing that. And specifically, I mean, it's not enough to just tell people, here's what you do, but sometimes you need to make sure that they are equipped with the materials at the time to be able to mobilize, whether that be generators or, mobility plans around, right? Like we just need to do a lot more on the front end. Again, I've been underwhelmed by the amount of conversations that we've had around disaster preparedness. But again, to me, it's about making sure that those with the lived experience, and again, the diversity within the diversity are there. Because again, I can see one segment of community being overrepresented while other segments of the community are underrepresented. So that's another thing. And I will look to the center and others on, is this the appropriate composition? This is also things that I do in my job, in my work around, bringing people together to reimagine systems, to dismantle systems of oppression, to acknowledge and dismantle systems of oppression. And so these are things I'm familiar with and have experience with doing. But again, not necessarily in this capacity. I will say I have strong relationships, though, from my experience as a commissioner for Colorado Parks and Wildlife with both Colorado Parks and Wildlife, our Department of Natural Resources, the Water Department. I've been staying very close to the wildfire work and restoration work and mitigation work that they're doing. And so I've got the relationships, but certainly would need to expand those relationships and position people to be able to activate together. And again, those plans we'll need to think about the finance of those plans as well. That might be an additional cost that the city hasn't been thinking about, but we'll need to make sure that those costs have been identified as well.
Definitely. Thank you. And yeah, definitely with emergency preparedness, the prep side before an emergency takes place is super important. And we refer to those as kind of the blue sky days where there isn't an emergency. And that's the time when we need to prepare, especially with our community that might need more transportation assistance or take a little bit more time to get ready during evacuation. And we need to start putting the rails in place well before the emergency takes place. And it's going to take collaboration and community engagement to help with these supports to make sure everyone is safe and sound and prepared in the event of the emergency. So with that, the need for more education and awareness, do you have any ideas or measures that you could take to help raise awareness about disability rights to help foster a culture of inclusion in our city?
Well, one is modeling that within the city internally, right? And addressing some of the addressing as many issues as possible, but certainly the low-hanging fruit whenever possible. I think one of we as a city can model the type of inclusion that we want to see, which means, it could mean closed caption during our virtual meetings. It could be having interpretation. It could be, right, like, or signing. It could be, there's just a lot that we could be modeling that I think in areas that we can do better in. As far as, educating, and, I've spent 25 years in public public education. And so I always lean on BVSD as one of the key partners in making sure that we are educating about disability rights early and often, right? And it's not waiting until 7th grade when they're, and I just always think, from my racial lens, parents are like, I don't want to talk about racism. Like, you have, children start making biases racially as early as 3 months old. And so if we don't communicate and front end, if we don't help them see all of those intersections, then it's very easy to form bias that turns into things that we don't want in our community. So that's one piece. I think we have another incredible opportunity with our open space program, which already is leading, but it's underfunded and understaffed, right? So I love Topher, but again, I see the work and then I see VJ, and then I think that's not sufficient for how much open space we actually have. How do we make this not something that's an add-on, but it is actually a part of the fabric of who we are. So again, our open space, and our parks, as well as the other youth programs. And again, I just say that because it's always wonderful because you can get multiple generations when you get youth. We also have our elder committee. So basically making sure that we, one, have an idea of who our different community groups are and organizations, and just who needs to know what. Is not assuming that everybody doesn't know anything. That was another thing that kind of gnaws my graws. Sometimes we just go in assuming people don't know anything when they actually do. So how do we, again, identify those with lived experience and the willingness and know-how, make sure that they're resourced to do the work, and then find a variety of ways to reinforce these messages.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think especially within our school systems and BVSD and with our youth population, education awareness on disability etiquette is really important. And that's an area where collaboration with independent living centers can be effective, as we can help provide those trainings and education, as well as with the staff and the educators, in addition to the students, to help not only incorporate that into the curriculum, but also educate the staff and students who are teaching the students, because there is a very big gap in understanding, and there are people who have lived experiences that we don't really account for their knowledge, but then there's people that we assume should know these things but have never been taught.
Absolutely.
So we do have to kind of understand and meet people where they're at and provide information in correct ways to people that need it. And that.
And actually, one of the projects that my company, the Makuyu Collective, is engaged with is with the watershed, Boulder watershed folks, and they're trying to, strengthen their ambassador program and community outreach and those kinds of things. And so again, I'm just kind of reminded of how do we also build on those who are doing kind of like tertiary type work, and again, just collaborating, because there's so much that we need our community to know, that having I think there's a need for a stronger effort to align efforts around what we want our community to know, so that we're not overwhelming our community with so many different things that are urgent and important. Another thing that comes to mind is our university. My company also gets to work on like with capstone students who are partnering with the city or the state, or other municipalities or nonprofit organizations. And so there are a brain trust of folks that are studying all of these things and want to have experiential opportunities. So how do we also strengthen those partnerships between the city and the CU around disability rights, accessibility, policy setting, innovation? I'm ready.
Thank you so much. And I want to be respectful of your time. I know we're right at the end, so I wanted to leave the last couple of minutes in case there was anything that we didn't get to cover that you wanted to make sure to highlight, or any kind of closing sentence that we can leave our audience with today. And then just give you a thank you right now for your time, and I'll let you close us out. And thank you so much, Taishya.
Sure. One, thank you so much for having me. When I started this journey, I didn't know quite what to expect. And as we started doing the forums and everything, and just realizing, wait, there's a whole community I'm not hearing from. And so I'm just so excited that y'all put something. So, me and Michelle, like, okay, what are the people we can talk to? Then we talked to Toph, who we can talk to, Toph. And so then we got connected with you, and it's just been wonderful to see you all engage in this way. And I'm excited to have this continue to build and grow. But that's the kind of policymaker I am. If I see a problem, I'm not going to just write an op-ed about it. I'm going to just call the people and see what we can get done. And, we can't do this, can't we do this? We're going to do something. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So I'm just really grateful for the relationship that we've started to build. And I'm really excited to continue to expand and advocate and move beyond voice to agency, move beyond access to agency. I've been given lots of things, but I don't want to be given something. This isn't charity. This is our responsibility. And I'm excited to be a partner in that.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you and the work that you're doing, and best of luck to you next week. And we hope that we can continue our conversations, and we want to be an ongoing resource for you and for the city, and have that collaborative effort that isn't just a one and done conversation. This is going to take time. It's going to take effort from all of us, and we're ready to get to work as well and support. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening. And again, thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous with it, and we appreciate it.
And I do have 1 more minute left. So I wanted to come back to the intersect when we were talking about transportation. And you mentioned the snow piece, and I just was struck by the similarities with the biking community. And I'm just wondering, are there coalitions kind of coming together between the disability and the biking community, trying to advocate for stronger enforcement of our snow removal?
Yeah, we do. We're on certain committees and do work with community cycles, and we do have kind of some aligned advocacy agenda items with them, but the collaboration definitely could increase and align more and kind of get just more organized. And I find in a lot of times advocacy work, we are sometimes siloed off from one another, and we got to start. We want to start talking more, and we don't need to. We don't need to be reinventing the wheel. We need to be using the momentum that we've been.
The children, the parents with the strollers. I mean, they are between the three communities. I feel like that would represent more than 50% of our community easily.
From there, strollers and bikes and people who use wheelchairs like myself, to our low vision and blind community with white canes and guide dogs and crutches. It goes on, and the list goes on and on and on. And there's so many people that will benefit from these infrastructure changes for the better. So the more we can get aligned with our values, the better we can work together to really create this community that we all know it can be, and we need to be for each other. So I think that's a great place to end it, with kind of that collaborative approach and working together.
It's the only way.
Thank you so much. And just to end it on this note, we'd love to invite you to our Boulder office at some point in time to share a little bit more about what we do at CPWD. So you're always welcome, and we'll definitely be in touch to see how we can work together in some capacity in the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll see what my schedule looks like next week, and maybe
no rush. I'm talking after the next 2 weeks, as you'll probably be a little busy.
Right. Well, I'm still campaigning. I still need to go and find out and learn more and do all the things. So
very true.
But thank you for the opportunity. And sorry, my partner just got back, and now he's trying to crawl on the floor to come and get this kitten. Alas, we'll talk to you later. Take care.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey.